Hello guys, I'm coming to wow, what was that? Hello guys, I'm coming to you here today with another book talk slash review. Be careful of spoilers, and I'm here today to talk to you about Shadow and Bone, the first book in the Grisha trilogy. I have to preface this by saying that I'm just mixed about this book, and I'm gonna let you know why now. Going into this, before I read this would have been just a pure cover buy for me. I knew that people had been saying good things about this, but honestly, I just could not get over how pretty this cover was, and how pretty the spine was, and even the back was, and I was kind of like, it's pretty overload, like, come on now. Obviously, this has to be a good book, because, shallow book buyer in me was just telling me to go and get it. And so I'm going to start off with the plot as best as I can deduce. So we have our main character, Alina Starkov, in this land like Russia named Ravka, and she's in the military with her orphan friend Mal, and one day they're crossing the Shadowfold, which is sort of like this dark place where there are these weird, I forget what they're called in the book, they have a name, but I'm blanking on the name, but they're like these flesh-eating monster-type creatures, and they're getting attacked because the fold splits their country in two. One part has all the port cities, and then the other part, which is most of it, from this little map that is in here, if I recall correctly, most of Ravka is, so here is the little shadow fold that they call the Unsea, and then over here we have the port cities, and then over here is the capital and other places, and so this thing divides their country. Not really in half, but it divides them in a place that, you don't want it to be divided. And so they're going through it, and then when, she gets attacked, and she, spaces out, and there's, this blinding light, and then when she comes to, everyone's staring at her, and they're like, you're a Grisha. And you're like, what is a Grisha, Monty? I don't know what this is. A Grisha are the people in this novel that practice the small science, and they can manipulate things around them to do things. So some of them make fire, but they don't make fire, they manipulate the combustibles, and they have a piece of flint to spark the combustibles, and then they can control the fire and do all sorts of fun stuff. And there are obviously different Grishas do different things, so it's pretty much like this book's magic system, but she just wanted to make it more scientific, which to me was sort of okay, but then I was just kind of I don't know, I just would have. Moving on. So we find out that Alina, who didn't think she was a Grisha, is now Grisha, and so she gets swept away to the Grisha school to learn how to harness her special ability, well, not ability, but how to practice her gift that she has. And that's, I guess, where the story would normally take off, but there we just see her going to class, getting beat up by the combat training teacher, because she has to take combat training. And then we have the Darkling, and the Darkling is there, and he's sort of the most powerful Grisha. And here's where I'm going to slip into spoilers. What I didn't like about this book was... One second, I need a drink. What I didn't like about this book was Alina. Alina just annoyed me to no end. I feel like it's not important for a main character to be relatable. It's not important for them to be likable. But when I'm reading this novel from the first person, I think that, me liking how you think and your thought process and how you, that sort of, your mind, is sort of like a bonus, and I just couldn't get behind Alina because she never really seemed sure of anything, and I think that was her problem. She never was confident in anything that she was doing, especially for the first half of the book, when all she could do was feel as soon as she gets swept away to the Grisha school, at first, there's this thing of, oh, I can't believe I'm here, and I was like, okay, that's understandable, but then it just turned into this, pity party because she couldn't summon the sun, because she's a sun summoner. I already warned for spoilers. So she's a sun summoner, and she can't summon the sun, the light, and so it's just a pity party for going, oh, I can't do this. And then when she can finally do it is when she gets over Mal, who was her childhood friend, and they were raised in an orphanage together. And so once she gets over him and her love for him, which was really what the first part of the book was, like before they go into the fold, it was just her obsessing about how in love she was with him. And then after Grisha school, she was trying to forget him, and she could only summon it once she, like, forgot about him. And then there was the Darkling, who she initiated, like, thought was evil, and all she ever heard were terrible, terrible stories about this man, who was 130 years old, and we don't know how old Alina is, but the Darkling is 130, and all of a sudden they're just falling in love and kissing, and I was like, this is, like, really disturbing, because I can't help but feel that this is sort of, like, just not right. And then she's just like, oh, the Darkling can't be evil, but at the end, he's just evil. Like, there was nothing more to him. There was no depth to the Darkling, there was no complexity to him, it was just, oh, I'm actually evil, but I'm going to make you think that I'm not evil by kissing you, so you won't think about me being evil. That was his whole plot. That was his evil plan, was to make Alina think that he was a good guy by kissing her, and making her a little horny. I was just like, okay. But I can get past that. But what I couldn't get past is that Shadow and Bone does not feel complete. It does not feel like it's finished anything. It doesn't feel like a story. It just feels like the first piece in a trilogy, which it is. And I picked up the other two books, so I have them here with me. I have Siege and Storm, and I have Ruin and Rising, and I do plan on continuing to read them. But what I don't like about Shadow and Bone was, again, the Darkling Alina romance, but I also just couldn't stand the fact that it didn't feel complete. It felt like it relied on the fact that it was a trilogy too much, because what the plot in this book is pretty much non-existent, other than the fact, like, the plot up until, like, literally, like, the last 100 pages, maybe, is just Alina going to the little palace to learn the way to the Grisha, and then her, like, falling in love with the Darkling, and then running away when she realizes that he's evil and he's just going to use her. And it's at that point that we get the overarching plot, which I guess is that she thinks that she's going to use her power to destroy the Shadowfold and, like, unite her country again, but really the Darkling just wants to use her to expand it and just, like, rule over not only Ravka, but their two bordering nations. And she's not down with that. So she just, like, was like, peace out, and she runs. But then she's captured at the end, which was totally predictable. And then at the end, she just pulls some, like, some stuff. Like, the plot just started to disintegrate at the end for me. I'm sorry, it just did. Like, when she was like, oh, my killing the deer was my mercy, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. But whatever, just, you okay, let's just go with this. And so I feel like it didn't feel complete. The ending didn't really make sense to me, and I feel like I need more, and I don't like that feeling. I don't like the feeling of reading a first book and just having to read the next one. Like, yeah, it's nice, it's a good little selling thing, but I don't know. So I have picked up the second one, and I'm going to hold it here now. I've picked it up, I read the prologue, but as for Shadow and Bone, I don't think that this is a book you have to read. I think if you've been interested, you should check it out. But I wouldn't go into too high expectations, because not only was the plot not that great, but the incorporation of, like, the Russian influence, I'm not even going to go there. So I'm just going to forget that this was ever inspired by Russia, and because that was one of the initial draws, other than the cover, was like, oh, it's a YA book, and it's in, like, Russia, but just no. Like, the Russian influences, they didn't work for me. Mostly the names and, like, things of that nature. And apparently there are things in here that aren't correctly translated from Russian, so I was just like, okay. So, overall, it's not a terrible book, it's just an okay book. I don't think that it's a book that really lived up to the hype, but it's not terrible. Like, my expectations, I think, were too high for what it was, and that's not Lee Bardugo's fault, that's my fault. But apart from my expectations being too high, I just feel that it wasn't complete, and that's not my fault. I feel like I wasn't given a complete book, and so maybe it'll feel complete after Siege and Storm, but even then I don't think that's a good thing. So that's my thoughts on the book. If you've read Shadow and Bone, let me know in the comment section below what you think, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye.